All right, today is Monday, April 10th, the meeting of the Acushnet Board of Selectmen. A motion to call the meeting to order.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we do not have minutes, we don't have meeting mail. Our first appointment is a joint meeting between the Acushnet Board of Selectmen, Acushnet School Committee, and the Town Moderator to appoint the Old Colony School District Representative, Mr. Justin Broder. Mr. Dakin, as our Town Moderator, this is your meeting to oversee, so.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Select Board meeting is open. I'm going to need the school committee to open their
I'd like to make a motion to open our school committee meeting.
I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Now I'm going to need a motion to open a joint committee meeting comprised for people at home of the Board of Selectmen, the school committee, and myself as the town moderator.
Motion to call the joint meeting to order.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, this will be for a 3-year term for our representative to the Old Colony School District Committee. And it must be completed before May 1st of this year to comply with our contractual obligation. For the folks at home watching, as of October 1st, 2022, Old Colony had 539 students from the towns of Acushnet, Carver, Lakeville, Mattapoisett, and Rochester, with an annual operating budget of $8.3 million. Acushnet's portion of this is 167 students, 31% of the total student body, and is assessed at $2.3 million. Needless to say, this position has a sizable impact on not only Old Colony's budget, but Acushnet's as well. Before we discuss or vote on the candidate for reappointment, are there any additional nominations from the committee? Hearing none, Mr. Justin Broder is before us today as our existing representative being considered for reappointment to a 3-year term. Are there any questions or comments from anyone regarding Mr. Broder? Okay, we'll take a roll call vote. Selectman Wonar, yes or no?
Yes.
Mr. Gasper?
Yes.
Mr. Hinckley?
Yes.
Mr. Howcroft?
Yes.
Mr. Gomes?
Mrs. Gomes, yes.
Miss Gomes, I'm sorry. Can't read my own writing. Mr. Dez?
Yes.
And I am a yes. Mr. Broder has been reappointed unanimously to the Old Colony School District Committee. Now we need a motion to close the joint committee meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And a motion for the school committee to close their meeting.
Motion to close our meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Back to you, sir.
Mr. Moderator, that was by far the most thorough appointment that I've been a part of. Thank you for that, and appreciate, as always, Mr. Dakin, your attention to detail, getting into the nooks and crannies and putting some thought into it, so thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
All right, very good. All right, now on to
Thank you,
our
school committee.
regularly scheduled program. All right, the remainder of the meeting is we've got some new business to take care of. We're going to go over the warrant at the town meeting, and then we will have an executive session and not reconvene. And so, all right, first item on your agenda is the adoption of our finance policy, or consideration of that. Mr. Kelly, you want to lead that?
All right, Mr. Chairman, I have a representative here of PARS and the Plymouth County OPEB Trust. And she is going to talk to us about Plymouth County OPEB Trust Program. It feeds into the finance investment policy that has to be adopted down the road, so that we will then, it's the board and the treasurer's decision on what type of investment level the OPEB funds are invested. Part of this will be my recommendation that the funds are moved from the PRIM into PARS Peacock, but the board should consider all of the background, and we will go forward.
Thank you. So I brought additional copies of this, but I see you all have hard copies, so I'll leave those in my bag. My name is Kate Canning. I work for Public Agency Retirement Services, and I'm here representing my company today in conjunction with our collaboration with the Plymouth County OPEB Trust Program. The Plymouth County OPEB Trust Program was established in 2015. It was brought together as an opportunity for public agencies within the 4 counties of Bristol, Plymouth, Barnstable, and Norfolk counties to come together and address their OPEB liabilities. As PARS, we bring together a model which is called a multiple employer trust program. That is where independent agencies can come and adopt our trust program. They invest in our investment model, and we provide them with the full administrative support, which includes the document management, the legal documents for the trust, all contribution and distribution management. We support all actuarial and audit requests, and also provide US Bank as a co-fiduciary, co-custodian of those assets. US Bank serves in that role to ensure that these assets that you're entrusting with us are held for the best interests of your beneficiaries, which are your retirees and your future retirees, which are your current employees. And then US Bank has developed 4 investment portfolios that you can select from. So that's what I'm here to share with you today. The program structure consists of a sponsorship, a sort of a initiation by the Plymouth County Treasurers. They sort of said, let's provide this idea. Then we have an investment committee, the Peacock Investment Committee. That's a 5-member investment committee, and it is made up of duly elected representatives of all of the member agencies that participate in the program. So you have a member who serves as a town treasurer, a member who serves on a governing board like the Board of Selectmen, an individual who serves in administrative roles similar to your town administrator, and a union representative. As I mentioned before, PARS serves as a trust administrator and support, and US Bank as trustee, custodian, and investment management. So a little bit of background on PARS. We have been working exclusively with public agencies since 1984. We operate a Section 115 trust, which is the trust we bring forth for the OPEB market. We also have a pension stabilization fund that we work with as well. We have over $5 billion of OPEB trust assets under management across 12 states. The states we work in, why we don't work in all 50 states, OPEB benefits are not offered in all 50 states, so we don't work in those states. US Bank has been in existence since 1863 with over $9 trillion of assets under management, and US Bank is one of the largest providers of custodial trustee services for OPEB assets. We view ourselves as a one-stop shop option. Your treasurer's office, your finance department is has a lot of burden on the day-to-day management of all things Acushnet. So our role is that we assist the treasurer in the management of the OPEB trust. We do all the day-to-day aspect, contribution management, disbursement management. Disbursement management is when you begin to take assets out of the trust to pay for retiree health care. We manage that. Support for actuarial and auditing. We assist with funding plans, work with agencies to determine what their funding goals are, how they want to address it, possibly identification of opportunities for assets. Flexible contributions and distributions. We do not have a minimum contribution amount. We don't require annual contributions. We believe you fund your OPEB trust when it meets the needs and the ability of the town. There are no startup costs. The legal documents and the program have been established, so there's no offset costs, and there are no trading costs or back-end costs. We have 32 local agencies in the four counties that are currently participating, and that is detailed on page 6 of the presentation, so you can see other towns and school districts and special districts that are participating. Any questions so far? Nope. So US Bank, in addition, provides a discretionary approach. We have a dedicated portfolio manager, Dennis Mullins from US Bank, and he has developed 4 portfolios. These are custom designed. The idea in our program is an economies of scale model. One of the greatest challenges for communities when they are thinking about establishing an OPEB trust after taking the time and putting in the administrative burden is having the assets available to put together a diversified portfolio. Well, at PARS, we're using a multiple employer trust, so we're having agencies come together to combine their assets for investment purposes only. That's an important thing to note. There's no cross-sharing of liabilities or earnings. So we're able to pull these assets together. In the 4-county area, we have $40 million of assets together that are being invested currently in our portfolios, and it allows for the assets to be more highly diversified. We have a fee schedule which is based on assets under management. It's a 2-prong, it's detailed on page 10. So the first section are the PARS fees, which are 20 basis points, and that's based on your assets under management. And then the US Bank, you'll see there's an ongoing fee schedule with benchmarks, which began at 31 basis points, but is now down to much lower because we have gone from having no assets in the trust to now we're at 18 basis points in for investment management. Yes?
On that ongoing fees, you said now you're at 0.18 because
Yes.
you're between, the trust is between 10 and 15 million?
Yes, well, the trust is now at 40 million, so there's a blended rate, so as you hit different benchmarks, the asset fee goes down. So we've gone from 51 basis points in June 2015, an all-in cost for a member, to now it's 38. So as the trust grows through new members, contributions, and investment earnings, that fee goes down. So we pass that on to the agencies who participate.
So it's not, the fees aren't based on individual municipalities or people
No.
that are investing in it?
Yeah, it's based on
It's
all
not
the
like
cumulative.
if we have 1 million and we don't sit inside of that category where the scheduled fees are?
No.
It's for the total cumulative
Yes,
trust?
exactly.
Thank you.
So, and just to kind of put it into perspective, it's hard to calculate what your fees would be based on basis points. So I always like to do a kind of a, on page 12, assuming you put $1 million into the trust, and assuming no earnings or contributions, just $1 million, what you would pay for a month would be $316. That's the combined fee.
That's kind of why I asked the question.
Yeah.
Because it contradicts what's on the other page
Right.
for the 1 million. If you go to that schedule of 1 million.
Exactly.
I got it, it would come out to 0.135.
Right, that's based on, because it's a blended rate. As we heat, so the first, if you look at it, the first $5 million of assets that went into the trust for the whole program are at 31.5.
Yep.
And then the next 5 are at the next, so it blends. So as the assets go, it's pulling the asset fee down.
I was just looking at the
Yeah.
example based on what I know, what we kind of have.
Okay.
And I came up with a percentage, and then I went back to the chart, and I was like, how's that happening?
Yeah.
But I get it now, it's
Okay.
cumulative to the
Yes,
trust.
cumulative to the whole trust.
So it's
all that's
everybody's
members.
money in one giant pool, and that's what the trust fees
Exactly.
are.
But
I mean-
again, yes, but again, I always like to say this because there are multiple employee trusts and employer. The difference is in an employee trust, everything's invested together and there's cross-sharing of liabilities and earnings, so you could pull what you have. Whereas this is a multiple employer. if Acushnet were to participate in Peacock, Acushnet's assets would always be Acushnet's assets. They wouldn't be crossed liabilities or earnings sharing. So no other town would benefit from your earnings. But the
So-
fee schedule is equal across, like everybody who participates in the trust currently right now are paying 38 basis points.
So that's the fee schedule, but the investment, if your return on investment for the total trust, if you had 50 million in assets, if it was 10%, that doesn't get divvied up equally, it's just what your little apportionment
Yes.
is for a municipality,
Yes.
i.e. the $1 million, we would earn the 10% on the 1 million. It's
Exactly.
not 10%, we bust it up equally,
No.
because some people may have a lot more money
Exactly.
invested in the trust.
Yes, exactly.
Thank you.
So that's pretty much the overview of the trust program as it works.
What has been the trust rate of return over the last 5 years
I did write that down.
versus, and I think Mr. Kelly started off and he used some terminology that I think is confusing to most people at home with PRIM. So that's our state, where we're currently invested in is called PRIM. It's run through the state. And
Correct.
I believe we earned a negative.
Negative 2%.
So what's
For
your
the last
5?
5 years?
No.
No.
Oh, I was about to say like, like what?
We would have been talking to you 4 years ago.
Yes, I was just like, okay. So, as you know, the past year has been a tough investment. See, I can't speak to PRIM's returns because they don't send them to me, so,
Right.
but for year to date this year, so as of, the fund is the rate of return is 3.26. The 1 year return, so that was March 31st, 2022 to March 31st, 2023, was negative 6.85. That was what we were down over the 1 year return. However, our 3 year return, which is our annual returns, were 6.75. So that's each year you have an annualized return of 6.75. Our 5 year return is 5.15. And our since inception, so that's since August of 2015, that's when the portfolio first had its assets in it, so that's since inception, was 5.81. And to make note, we developed a benchmark which is based on the Russell 2000. So we set a benchmark to compete against. Our 1 year rate of return for the benchmark was negative 7.77, so we are beating our benchmark. More important to beat your benchmark when it's down than be close to it when it's up. Our 5 year benchmark was 4.60, so we're again beating our benchmark where it's 5.15.
Are you actively, recruiting other municipalities like you're doing here, or
Yes,
what's,
yeah.
you have like
Yeah.
a marketing plan or whatever? How are you going about doing that?
It's me.
Okay.
So I should tell you, my role is, I am the director of the East Coast operations for PARS. I am a resident of Massachusetts, so this is where I live. And I manage all the Massachusetts accounts, so I serve not only as the person coming to talk to you today, but I'm the client services person. I will be attending the PCOT board meetings quarterly and the annual meetings. So, and when we say marketing, it's reaching out, speaking to treasurers and people at Mass Collectors and Treasurers Association. I don't know, it's aggressive marketing. We do have what we call electronic e-blasts where we send information out, white papers and things like that. So we talk to people that way.
Do you have a target, like how many other municipalities you're looking to bring on, or is it just keep going until
I think we're
keep going
just
until you keep going?
keep on, yeah,
The more you outperform,
exactly.
the more people are gonna wanna move
Exactly.
instead of being in the prim, right?
Well, so, I mean, we're doing this because we really believe in our product. One of the key things that differentiates us from PRIM is you have the option to select from 4 portfolios here. With PRIM, you do not. It's how they manage it. So what we really are saying is it's keeping control of your assets and how your assets are managed in your hands and in the hands of your treasurer. We have 4 portfolios that you may select from. Why you might select a portfolio and not another is intent. if where you are, and with regards to being fully funded. If you're closer to your fully funding, you may not want to be in a growth portfolio. You may want to be in a balanced portfolio, which is closer to pension. I have a client here in Plymouth County. It's actually a closed plan. That means they have closed their plan. There will be no new retirees added, and they've actually funded their plan and are now taking out assets, and we're managing that process to them. So they're in a conservative portfolio. So it's kind of what they're thinking. Risk tolerance is also an important thing. How do you feel as a community taking assets and investing them? Are you a growth motivated community, or maybe you're more comfortable with balanced or conservative? And we do offer a fixed income model because there's some agencies that prior to what's happened in the past 2 years were more bond centric. But that's actually kind of a main differentiator, is that we allow you to select from different portfolio options, and we work with you. There is no timing on changing portfolios. We have had in the past year and a half, we've been meeting with agencies as they're looking at the performance. I can coordinate meetings with Dennis Mullins, our portfolio manager, and we talk to them to make sure that portfolio selection best meets their needs today, and also 10 years from now, 20 years from now, and 30 years from now, because this is a 30-year investment program, similar to your pension.
Jim. So I went back to page 9 where you have those 4 categories, income, balanced, growth, and aggressive growth.
Yes.
And it seems like, you know, the bottom 2, growth and aggressive growth, are very heavily weighted equity.
Yes.
Even your balance is 64%, which I would consider pretty high for equity. Is your equity, when you talk equities, is it just domestic, or is it foreign included?
It is foreign included. So there is a small international equity position. So it breaks down, but mostly domestic.
Does
And I
your
can
portfolio go into more detail of where you're invested in what kind of equities?
Yes, I can forward that to Mr. Kelly, and provide you with an actual overview of the portfolio.
Of each category?
Yeah.
With Prim, there's a list of what entity you can invest in.
Yeah.
Is that similar?
Well, we operate under the prudent investor standard and public investing. So there are things that you can't invest in tobacco and such. I will provide you the portfolio view, and it'll show you exactly what is in the portfolio, which funds are, how much is held. So it's specifically in all of the portfolios, so you can see. It's about a 3 or 4 page document, breaks down, and then it'll show you the historic performance of each one of those categories.
Excellent. Yeah, I'd like to see that.
Yeah.
So you got all categories, because real assets seems to be very small. It's basically 3 or 4% in each one of your categories.
Yes.
What is considered a real asset?
Real estate is a real asset.
And that's it, not gold, silver, or anything
No,
like?
it's we approach it as real estate.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Hinckley, any questions?
No.
All right, we're going to take this under advisement, right? We're not gonna make any decision today.
Just so the board knows, in the past, you adopted the Mass General laws concerning the trust agreement in 2019. That is a 90-day hold to transfer out of Prim.
Okay.
So you have 90 days once you make the decision before you can transfer. And as you see, the difference in fees and basis points, it's almost double with Prim. And they have less of a choice of how you would invest.
Okay. Very good. Thank you.
So I'll send the full portfolio documents, historic documents that'll show you through the most recent months.
Can we, the town, let's just go back to your 1 million example.
Absolutely.
Can we, the town, diversify where we invest in these funds? Like, in other words, so you gave us 4 different places that the town can invest. Once we all gather up and we figure out what we want to do, I mean, obviously there's got to be an approach, and people need to make a decision on where this money should be allocated, right?
Correct.
You know, depending on where our group is, right? You said people are closer to retirement.
exactly.
you want to be more towards the fixed income because you don't want to be gambling your money away.
Right, well, so, yeah, so the idea is if you're going to start taking disbursements from the fund, you may want to be a little more conservatively invested. And I think that's what you're saying. And are you asking, could you put certain percentages in the different portfolios?
How do we know when we're gonna start taking, like, you use that example, how do we know when we will start drawing from that fund? Because we just started it, so there's a small amount of money, and I know we have certain dollars in a budget that goes towards this expenditure. And this is more like a bank to try to compound interest and get us there quicker,
Exactly.
because OPEB's such a large number. We've been thrown mixed numbers over the years, what our OPEB liability is, anywhere between 10 million and 15 million, right?
Correct.
So, we started taking the approach where we, compound interest works for everybody, right? It's the best way to get wealthy, right? If you stick to the
Right.
plan.
Absolutely.
So how do we know, like, is there a trigger, or is it something based on, what we have already allocated for OPEB for employees that have retired versus this particular fund where we can say we don't need to draw from that for another 10 years? So we could be a little bit more aggressive? Is there a scale that we can look at, or is there something that?
It's something that we actually, when I mentioned the funding policy, we actually will sit down and have a conversation with you or your treasurer. And the first thing you would look at is your actuarial report. And you'll notice that that's where you see your total unfunded liability, and you see that big number. And then it'll show you your assets that you have in your trust, and that's offset, then you get your net. You'll notice there's a thing called a discount rate, and we'll look at that. That's where your actuary is saying, given your current approach with your investments, this is how close we're gonna think you're gonna get there. So that tells us your real number. We would look at do you have a potential retirement bubble? I mean, where are you in a retirement scheme?
Sure.
That thing. And then you look at it and balance also what is your pay-as-you-go number, that's your line item. So we take all those things and we look at them and we start thinking about your goals. And if you're in early days of funding, if you're say maybe below 20%, you wouldn't be contemplating really taking a disbursement. You'd want to get to maybe a 40 or 50 or 60% before you really started thinking about that. But a side note, the way our program is developed is you can access your funds in this trust at any time. So I have a client in another state that had a significant issue with balancing its budget. So it took a small amount to offset that cap. They came in and took it. So you'd really want to look at that. You want to have some of the actuaries I work with very closely here in the state. We kind of have a group meeting and we talk about it and we run out funding plans. Like if you fund at this level, you can get to this, and maybe this is when you start thinking about disbursements, looking at your retirement eligible age, and you make a big calculation. So it's really a thoughtful conversation that you want to have because it is a daunting thing because you have so much money that you're putting in your trust, and then you're looking at a larger number and you're like, how are we getting there? How close should we get to there? And all that.
Yeah, I know it's a daunting number.
It is a daunting number. But it's important to note that, so we've been thinking about OPEB really since about 2011 in the state. 80% of communities are doing some sort of addressing of their OPEB funding. And of that 80%, like 90% are below the 10% funding level. So if you're kind of saying like, how's Acushnet doing in the same kind of the realm of it, this is really early days in addressing OPEB. So so then you reflect back to when the push came to fully fund pension. That was a huge iceberg that every agency was looking like, how are we going to address this pension? But you kind of one step at a time, and I think that's what you do with OPEB. You put your trust in place, and you make an intention annually to put assets. You you try to have a diversified portfolio, and you address those changes, and you adapt every year or every other year, and see what how you're doing. But it's kind of a long-term thing. But at first, it does look daunting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Have a good
Right.
day. Cheers.
I'll send you that information.
Thank you.
All right, item number 2, our financial investment banking report. Mr. Kelly.
All right, just so the board knows, right now, the OPEB liability is 21 million and change.
like doubles every 5 years.
And you're doing pay as you go, but it's true. One of the issues is the number of retirees. The other issue is the cost of the wraparound health insurance policy. And the nice thing about this system that was described is the town has control, whereas with Prim, you've got no control, and you're being charged about 70 basis points for a portfolio that's going down,
Yeah, so this basically cuts it in half, fee-wise.
fee-wise,
Yeah,
and they outperform Prim.
it matters, definitely matters.
All right, this is just an update. I figured I'd put this together with the OPEB discussion. This shows where we have our funds and what we are doing with them and how we're transferring various funds in and out of banks. We have stabilization and certain trust funds in Bartholomew. There are investment portfolio manager. We moved some funds into Bluestone out of Bristol County. The difference is it's 100% insured, Bristol County wasn't, and it's a higher rate. We also have put funds in Cape Cod Cooperative for the same reason, 100% insured. We've got money in Harbor One and Leader Bank, 100% insured, 100% collateralized. Prim, you see there, Rockland Trust, Gulf Enterprise, and we're waiting on new rates to see as far as that goes, especially with the money market sewer betterments, and the Unibank is the online payment. When we looked at the accounts, we were concerned for two reasons. Number one was the rate of return, and number two was that you had a great deal of money in institutions that were not insured 100%. And what we saw happen in a couple banks in California and here, we made sure and moved them. And
The Prim number that we have here, though, we have more than that, so my question would be why?
we have 400,000 that before we put into Prim, we put into a 4% CD to preserve it so that we didn't go down, we didn't send good money after bad down a
Okay.
rat hole.
Okay, thank you.
And so, as you can see, we're being a little more proactive than the treasurer collector's office and the town administrator's office has been in the past. This is in the process. We're still moving funds. We're, as you can see by the previous presentation, we're coming to the board for example where we invest the OPEB. You're going to have approximately $1 million in OPEB after this town meeting. So we want to make sure we preserve it and we let it grow. You ended up this year with negative money out of Prim.
Jamie, I would ask, I know right now the finance committee is in the throes of the budget. I think a presentation on this, what we just saw from, was it Kathy? I think would be really helpful to the finance committee at some point. I think it's just one more layer of oversight and eyes on it. You know, again, obviously, once we get through the budget and before we arrive at a decision, I think it would be good to get their eyes on this as well.
As this is still very fluid.
Understood.
We're just moving stuff out of where we didn't want it and putting it in places that are protected and a lot better rate.
Yeah, we talked about this when we talked, I think it was in September, with the recap sheet, right? With a little bit of interest that we
And the
were earning,
revenue
and it's
sheet.
peanuts, it's like $5,000, and I asked the question, how could we only be earning $5,000 in interest when we have a stabilization account at roughly $3.5 million? Doesn't make any sense, right? So this is where Mr. Kelly, you know, took that
Yeah, understood.
and shot off, and, you know, hopefully that interest payment will increase dramatically,
All
right?
right.
Well, and also, it kind of scares you when you see these banks failing and then you hear that, oh, somebody had $2 million in it, but they're only insured up to 250.
Right, okay. All right, is there a motion to accept and place on file?
So move.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. All right, next item. American Legion is looking for a video amusement machine. Is there a motion to accept, to approve?
I looked at this, it looks like the date, it was done previously, and it just says one video game machine and one jukebox, so is this something new, or is this something that they already have? Because we got a license in front of us dating back to December 7th, 2022, which I know it wasn't too long ago, only a few months ago, but I thought it was for something new. I guess because the new gambling laws in Massachusetts or whatever, so I guess what they're gonna call a video game machine versus a gambling machine. But is this something that was already approved by this or past board? It looks like this has been,
This, as far as I know, this is a new machine, so a new license, a different machine.
So this license is just for example?
Yeah, it would be reissued once the board does it. That's a past
All right,
license.
so this would be amended to a video game machine, jukebox,
Yeah.
video game machine.
It's another machine.
and you usually do it stuff like this, you talk to the police chief, any concerns about anything? Dates, times, like jukeboxes, noise and stuff like that?
I haven't heard any, but this is the addition of one machine to an existing.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
As long as we don't have any problems.
Number 4 has a number of FYI issues from the circuit. The reason it's here is I asked it be put in to show that we have all these issues happening with Serpide, and I'm the only representative left of the town on the Serpide board after Doug left. And I talked to Jeff Walker, who's the director, and he says there are things that should be addressed from the planning functions. And I talked to Mark Francois, and he agreed to serve as the town's representative to Serpide, the second representative, if the board would agree.
Yeah.
You know, there's language in here about the MBTA. I think we need to be careful with that conversation. I think that's a bigger conversation that we have to have with the residents of our community. Kind of maybe even an introduction meeting, hearing, whatever we want to call it, so everybody at home kind of understands what the state is doing, right? They're basically coming in and taking over local control of zoning, is what the state's doing with all these, with the MBTA thing. Unless we do certain things with our own zoning, I just wanna make sure that nobody's jumping in, head first and locking into any kind of grants to do with this kind of conversation. I think that this board needs to have a conversation, maybe a joint meeting with planning on this exact conversation.
Serpent is in effect the board's consultant. And I talked to Mr. Walker, and he would be glad to bring whatever issues the board wants. He can bring staff from Serpent down to do a presentation to the board.
You know what, if you could, our next meeting, I was talking with Sandy, Sandy Maderas, I believe her name is, with the South Coast bikeways, and to talk about, some interest in the committee, some residents have an interest in making Acushnet safer for pedestrians and bicyclers and things of that nature. And she indicated that Serpent is a good resource for that, so maybe we can invite Serpent in at the same time.
The next meeting is going to be the
Budgets
warrant.
and warrant.
Yeah.
We have to do
So do you
final,
want to do it in the meeting after that?
we gotta go through the budgets again too, for final approval.
Right, but we've got the meeting scheduled for
That's
the 24th,
lengthy.
right? April 24th.
Yep.
Do we want, we're gonna have a fair amount of regular town business we've gotta do. To just not do any town business because we've gotta do the warrant, I almost feel like we need to have a dedicated meeting just for the warrant, right? I know there's a gentleman in town who has an expectation that he's coming in to address some drainage issues, amongst other things. I'd be hard pressed to say like, okay, we're just gonna hit pause for a month and almost, 2 weeks and not do any business at all.
Next week is,
School vacation.
yeah,
I think the warrant,
We should have a
budget.
limited.
warrant and budget warrants its own, no pun intended,
Yeah.
its own meeting.
Right,
I think you just said that,
Right, I feel
right?
like
And
we've
then
done that
maybe
in the
squeeze
past.
something else in to take care of normal business that the Board of
Right.
Selectmen need to take care of.
Right.
That's fine, but I think, going through all the budgets, final
I don't know how you guys feel or
conversations.
what your calendar's like, but, just looking at this schedule, I don't know what the 25th of April looks like during the day to just go over. Was 24th our absolute drop dead deadline?
yeah, that's when
Okay.
you should sign the warrant.
Okay. All right. All right, well then let's just see how it goes. If we can put a few items, if we do the bike thing another time, that's fine. We'll just restrict it to, resident issues or something like that, and then we'll deal with those other things at the next meeting after that. Okay.
So, we still have Mr. Francois,
I make a motion to
Yeah.
appoint Mark Francois from the chairman of the planning board to Serpent, representative of Serpent.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Mr. Kelly, I will mention that inside of here, right, when I read through this, it's programs such as FEMA Building Resilient Infrastructure in Communities. And we just had a conversation with our fire chief for EMA and the building, to get some of that stuff moved out of the building. And we talked about maybe doing a little steel building there. Maybe you could talk to these folks and see if there's anything in the brick grant, to do something for a small building for EMA.
Yep.
All right,
Right?
very good.
Worth a conversation.
let's see how much we can pick their pocket.
Yeah.
All right, next item, 5-year lease for a fairway mower. Purchase price is $69,566.39. That's money that's already been approved and set aside, right? We just have to
Yes, that
execute the lease.
particular item was ordered back in December of 2021,
Got it, okay.
and the golf committee, at its meeting of last Thursday, approved a 5-year dollar buyout lease.
Okay.
Where I don't know if the price was included in there, but it was $16,477, 5 annual payments.
All right,
Yeah, this is something, but I agree with the chairman.
this is FYI, right? Or is this?
Yes.
Yeah, we already made this.
Yes, you did.
Okay, so this is FYI, all right.
The price may have changed a little bit. You
Yeah,
said something.
the price increases, there were price increases from the time that it was originally brought to your attention to the point in which it was ready to be
So
delivered.
just basically, just an FYI saying, hey, guess
Yes.
what? You're paying more for your mower,
Yeah.
Got it, okay.
5-year
Thank you.
lease.
There's a motion to accept and place on file.
I think because the original motion was to pay X and they're paying Y, just a motion to confirm the,
Motion to approve the annual payments in the amount of $16,477 for
Second.
5-year lease.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay.
Is that sufficient, Mr. Kelly?
yes, thank you.
Okay, this is a follow-up from our meeting of 3/14. Mr. Gasper asked that the golf course committee look into special rates for veterans. I'm glad to hear that the golf course committee did approve that, and then also special rate for town employees, and they approved that as well.
What's the special rate?
The
Town
rate of, the resident rate is 37, they approved the veterans rate of being equal to that of $37. And then employees, should employees choose to play golf, they would pay the greens fee and get the cart for free. So they pay the walking rate, and that would be on both weekdays or weekends.
So for employees,
Town employees, if town employees want to play golf, they did mention that. So did you guys not get a copy of that? All right,
Yeah.
so they had proposed that as something for the townspeople that work for the town. So we haven't had anything yet, but are you guys not in favor of that or would like to review that, that's fine as well. So they basically essentially said employees would pay a walking rate and get the cart free on the weekday. It's essentially like $7. On the weekend, it's like $20
for the cop,
for the cart.
it's only $7 during a week for a cop?
We have a weekday special, so it includes the cart in the fee. So it cuts the cart price down a little bit.
So this is essentially just whether they're resident or non-resident employees of town?
Correct. If you're an employee of the town, I guess they would have to show their badge for work.
I think it's a nice gesture for what it's worth, and, you know, I think the studies show that we've got exactly 9.2 town employees who golf, so I think it's a nice thing to do.
9.2.
Where's the
Where's the .2?
Some are better, some are worse, right? So it's on the aggregate.
Where's the kid? Where's the little kid? We only count him as
It would have been 10, but I
Not
counted
going
it as -1, so.
Yeah, that's fine. Make a motion to approve. Like all those.
All right,
So Steve, Dana, thank you for taking that request back to committee. And getting that approved, we appreciate it.
all right. Next item is Golf Management Committee voted to recommend the following. Mr. Paul Deschamps of Acushnet, a new hire as a full-time equipment operator, and William, I don't want to pronounce that name, Gagne of Dartmouth, hired as a groundskeeper. Is there a motion?
Angie. G-A-N-G.
Okay, Angie.
Motion to approve both hires.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. And the next one is
I have an addition to that.
Yeah.
I forgot.
Riley Perkins.
Yes, Perkins and Brody Duval is a young gentleman that lives in Acushnet.
You don't have Brody.
Thank you.
So I just submitted.
That's all right.
for revision. So he would be, with the initiatives that the golf committee has stated this year with keeping services a little higher than normal, paying a little bit more attention to cleanliness of the carts, Brody would be a fill-in on those responsibilities.
All right.
Motion to appoint.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, gentlemen.
All right. Have a good day. Great day.
You too, thank you.
How's the course? You're getting weather's
Filling up,
cooperating.
the weather's warming up, and this week they were probably, weekdays are like 75% full, and if the weekend is forecast sunny,
Been killing.
we're sold out.
Nice. Good stuff.
We got no complaints on the rates, everything seems to be fitting right
Yeah.
where it
Awesome.
should be.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
guys.
you, guys.
Thank you.
All right. The next item is to go through the warrant as a pre-read? Is that what we're doing, Mr. Kelly?
I'm
Just gonna
just
share
going
with us
to discuss the format, discuss what's going on
Okay.
up to this point.
Mr. Dakin, do you have a copy of this already?
I have a draft copy.
Okay.
I didn't bring it with me.
That's what we have.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a draft.
The first three articles are the usual acceptance of reports.
Right.
Deficits, that article will not be moved because we're doing deficits through transfers, paying deficits through,
When you say not moved, meaning
Not moved.
Three will be taken off.
or two will be taken off.
number 2
Yeah, it'll not be moved. It'll still be,
on there, but
just in case something appears and Todd needs it,
got it.
free.
Placeholder.
Yep. Then, after the three is the consent agendas. And then, a new section involving the revolving funds.
Okay.
And then the reserve funds. And then capital investments, we're waiting for a final approval, language for the fire truck from town council. And then there's the free cash article, CPC article.
Is somebody coming in for CPC?
But we can bring them in on that day, but just want to point out
Where's
also,
CPC stand, hey, Gene?
22.
22.
Just one point, Mr. Gasper,
Shoot.
if you're not aware. I did get a call from the Buzzards Bay Coalition regarding the project. You know, the last town meeting, we denied their request to buy that parcel of land off of Mattapoisett Road.
Yeah, the one that didn't make any sense for us to invest in.
So here's the deal, they just informed me literally on the way in, and Mr. Dakin was part of that conversation, that they are now purchasing 100 acres abutting that property that will provide 3 access points through Acushnet for Acushnet residents. So it sounds like they heard, what we were talking about, and I think that'll be.
Same funding that they're looking for?
Yeah, so they're gonna that's a separate funding source for that 100 acres.
Nice,
And then, so I think all total, there'll be a great
nice.
open space opportunity for the residents of Acushnet, Fairhaven, Mattapoisett, and Marion.
And just to piggyback, if you don't mind, Mr. Chairman, they also did secure articles on 4 other town meetings for funding from other towns as well, which they didn't have last year.
Yeah, well, the additional 100 acres is a big boost to that, right? It makes it very appealing.
Yeah.
At least, I think from our town's perspective, it was more about their watershed, right?
Correct.
And nothing gained for Acushnet, but now Selectmen won't saying an additional 100 acres of, that's a lot of land.
Yep.
Yeah,
And
pretty
I think
incredible.
we need to do a lot more when it comes to preserving open space, right?
Absolutely.
So,
And they've also, the Buzzards Bay is committed to lend their land steward program to us at Lake Street, to work on, like signage and talking about like the different species there and all that. And I think long-term, what we'd like to do, or hope to see over there, is just in town in general, have, we've got a lot of walking paths and pocket parks that I don't think the general public really knows about. And, eventually to have signage at each location that, if you're at Lake Street, yeah, you got the layout of Lake Street, but then there's also information about all the other parks, right? So it's like an interactive, signage opportunity. So if you're here, then you go to the Riverview Park, and you get Weldon Lane. There's all these great, recreational opportunities in town that I don't think people know about, so we gotta do a better job of doing that, and they've offered to assist there as well.
funny you mentioned that. I've been thinking a lot about all our open space that we do have, and
Right.
is that conversation of bicyclists and mountain bikes and things of the like, and I think that's something that we should in the future look at, is how do we try to do our best to identify where those spots are. Like you said, you brought up Weldon, right? And a lot of people don't know about it, but the people ride horses back there and things of the like, so you kind of do this is the mountain bike. If we find territory that's into it, I mean, I mountain bike and things of the nature, so if we can get something like that, instead of identifying where these parks are, you don't get somebody on a 10-speed bike trying to go into, let's call it the Weldon Lane area where it's not feasible for a 10-speed, but you identify more of mountain bike trails, right? And, walking trails and, things like that. You put them on the website so everybody understands it and we can start utilizing it.
Now with
So-
QR codes, we can go, with QR codes, you can just download, pull it up.
Yep.
And, so I think there's some great opportunity to be much more user-friendly. So anyway, excited about that.
Okay, Article 23 is the stormwater engineering MS4 article. 24 is an article about signs. 25, we're waiting on the language to borrow for the ambulance that we're not going to actually borrow. And then 26 is the school solar. Then you get to the three budgets, the main budget, and then the golf enterprise and the sewer enterprise. Then you get some miscellaneous articles. Senior work off, the youth employment programs, collective bargaining agreement for the firefighters you have to present to town meeting. Home rule petition on the deputy chief.
That's retirement age, so
Right.
let's
Right.
keep it
Has nothing to do.
broader scope. It's not about an individual, it's about the future of the town, how the town can operate. Would it call firefighters and things of the like after the age of 65?
Correct.
Because right now the law says there's a law that says you have to retire out at 65. And we're going for a home rule petition to extend that age limit, as
Correct.
long as they can pass
For
their physicals.
this individual and every other individual in the future would have to be the same thing.
Correct.
And that's because they get paid. If they were total volunteer, we wouldn't have to do it. So the state treats them just like they're part of the retirement system. Then you have the indebtedness article on the Old Colony feasibility study. You have the assessors article to increase the various limits for elderly exemptions. You have an article from the town clerk about changing the date of the town election. You have a placeholder, we're waiting for council on the soil conservation language, and then the stormwater bylaw amendment.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Before we go further, in your FYI, there's some, something about the Purple Heart Town
Oh, yeah.
and the signs. We're going to go forward investigating that and exactly how they do it in the other communities, where they order the signs from. And now the next item in your packet is something that is very, something you hate to see, it makes you sad. We have a resignation, and that person has got a great opportunity somewhere else, but I'd like the board to see that we have a resignation of our library director, Ms. St. Pierre. She is seeing a great opportunity elsewhere, and she's going to accept it. And it
Chairman.
should be someone who is missed.
Kidding me?
There's no
She built
question.
She built that library.
There's no question that Dean Abrasso will be sorely missed, not just by me, a representative of the Board of Selectmen, by many people in our community, fellow staff. She was what I would regard as an exemplary employee. Just a huge loss to our community, and I'm sorry that we're losing her, but There's probably multiple reasons for her departure, but with that said, Dina, you'll be sorely missed by myself and I know a great deal of people in the community. So thank you for your service.
Yeah, we should, let's bring her in if we can, maybe on the 24th, if that's worth bringing to have her recognized before she leaves. All right.
Just one, while we're up,
Yeah.
we're talking on the warrant, I don't know what because we haven't finalized budgets, right? And then there was some conversations, I know I had it with the police chief that was in here, I have reservations of the police department's budget, if it was still the same as we first glanced at, with the overtime line item. I have a concern with permanent salaries not funding, and I know that for all the people out there, so it's very transparent, we're not supposed to, they say you're not supposed to do something because you're predetermining the outcome of a negotiation. Not true. What I believe is, and I think we only tweaked permanent salaries last year, and I don't know if that was due to increased staffing or where we brought people in. I think it's a big mistake if we don't load a number into the budget, permanent salaries, increase the overtime line item, because we know that's substantially underfunded. The chief even agreed to that. I think that, I don't believe, as the chief now, I don't believe that we should be moving forward just because of where we're at in budgets and you know, money and things of the like. I think it's a huge mistake by not putting a funding source in there to try to at least stay up with what we already know is gonna be what it's gonna be, in other words. There's gonna be some increase. Why wouldn't we do that? Because that's detrimental down the road, trying to get funding and pulling money out of whatever hat and taxation and all that stuff. So I just want to try to do a better job at more transparency with our budgets. We know there's a cost. Last year was a very small amount in permanent salaries. Overtime hasn't been increased. It's a huge problem. I think there's, you know, 50, 60,000 bucks that you need to try to find for the police department's budget, my opinion. So
See how that plays out?
I think it needs to be addressed. And I would also say, I have concerns over, I'm giving Mr. Kelly some time to work some numbers with the finance committee. I'm deeply concerned. The police chief's salary line item hasn't been increased, and I know there's complications with that, but at least putting 2% like all our other employees are getting, and also our fire chief, he's under contract, there's no reason not to preload the same 2% all of our other employees are getting, and putting something there. If future negotiations come out more, at least we've made up some sort of difference from the past. I think zeroing out is setting a bad example for our employees. I've had enough conversations about that with employees, and I think we need to at least have enough respect to put something there for them. And if future negotiations take us higher, that's okay, then we're only playing makeup on a much smaller amount than the full amount moving forward, but that's how I feel.
Okay, very good. Mr. Hinckley, anything?
I think I'm
All
good.
right. Okay, we are going to executive session. Our next meeting is Monday, April 24th. We didn't set a time. Is that 4 o'clock? Soon?
It's when, March 24th?
So,
Yeah.
No, April 24th.
April, did I say March? I'm sorry.
I might have just said it.
Yeah, Monday, April 24th. Are we doing that?
See you later, Mr.
Is
Moderator.
that something we're gonna do in
Mr. Dagan?
the evening, or are we gonna do it during the day?
If it's budgets and if it's the finalized budgets in the warrant, we don't need, I mean, we're doing it now, which I thought we were doing that now, but the budget part of it, to give you some time between now and having a post, but it is what it is. So I'm available during the day and
It's a Monday, as long as it's after 9 AM.
This will have all the staff here?
We don't have to post, we just have to finish by the 24th. The posting comes after that.
Yeah, it's like 15 days prior to town meeting, right? By our charter.
Okay. You guys wanna do it during the afternoon? I mean, at noon? So
Yeah,
we have town department heads who are here and we gotta go through all this
We
stuff?
can do a one. I mean, a noon time, yeah.
I have to post the warrant May 5th.
Okay, well, let's do that then.
Call it noon.
All right, very good. Yep. So, we've got 2 executive sessions. We've got,
Mr. Chairman, I asked for only that, the executive session, number 1.
okay. All right, so executive session under General Law, Chapter 30A, subsection 21B3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body, and the chair so declares, and the board will not return to public session.
And it's concerning litigation.
All right. Concerning
Mr.
litigation.
Chairman.
All right, there's a motion.
Second.
Well, I need a motion in a second.
Second.
Move.
Oh,
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote, Mr. Gasper?
Yes.
Roll call vote, Mr. Hinckley?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. We are now in executive session. We will not return.